Hey, Holly.
Hey, Dave. Welcome back to the What Difference Does It Make podcast and part 2 of our interview with Chris Frantz, author of the brand new book, Remain in Love, Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club, Tina. It's subtitled.
Yes, we talk all those things. We're going to talk more about Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club, and Tina. We get further into our discussion. It's a great talk, and Chris is really wonderful. So let's get right into it.
I want to ask you one question about the name. This is on the topic. You made one reference in the book to the Talking Heads.
Oh, yeah, because some people say that, and I've seen people on the Talking Heads message board actually arguing about, is it Talking Heads or is it the Talking Heads? And actually, we don't care what you say, as long as you say Talking Heads. You know, it's okay to put the in front if you want to.
Okay, because it was a single reference in the book, and you called yourself out on it. You said, yes, I said the Talking Heads, and I couldn't figure out. I wondered because I know it is Talking Heads.
It's so silly. I mean, it doesn't matter, but I've actually seen people arguing about it.
All about the details. So your first show at CBGB's was, as you say in the book, was May of 1975, and you wrote down the set list. It is basically your first 2 albums, which is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, and you were a trio at this point. Obviously, I guess you get a contract before the end of the year. You're offered a record contract. That's crazy. And yet, what happens when you get this contract? What do you do?
Well, Seymour Stein of Sire Records saw us play at CBGB's, and he was he really liked us, and so he offered us a record deal on the spot, and we said, Seymour, now's not the right time. Let's talk tomorrow. And so he came down to our loft on Christie Street, and he met with us, and he said, you know, I want you to make a record. I love your band. And we said, well, that's very nice, Seymour, but we're not ready to make a record yet, which made him really nervous. He spent the entire, we made him wait for 18 months and until we felt like we were ready, because we had made a few demos, little, demos that you record very quickly. And we had listened to them, and we said, we're not ready to make a record yet. It's one thing to put on a show at CBGB's and to, rock the house there. But it's another thing to make a 12-inch record that a person is supposed to listen to over and over again, So we held off. But when we said we were ready now, when we said, Seymour, we're ready now, I think he got us in the lawyer's office the next day.
That's insane. You were 24 at the time, struggling. How much were you paying in your loft, by the way?
How much was I paying for my loft?
Yeah.
$289 a month.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Love it. So, but you're still, it's tough. And it's tough for if someone's ready to throw money your way and you're 24 and living where you're living to say, no, I don't want this yet. We're not ready. And this was a band decision, right? This was everyone agreed.
Yes. We all agreed on that. And it was because we really weren't ready. We needed to polish our stagecraft. We needed to get our sound together. And we had been a trio. We were doing very well as a trio, but we felt like we really should have another musician, like a keyboard player, or maybe somebody who could play keyboards and guitar to add new textures to the songs and make them more beautiful.
Yeah. However, you get to make this record, but your producer, Tony Biangiovi, you didn't necessarily agree with his direction or what was going on with this. As you're in the studio, you weren't happy, or tell us the story of Tony and Talking Heads. Sure.
Well, Tony had some kind of deal with Seymour Stein, or vice versa. I don't know, but Tony had produced the second Ramones album, And Seymour suggested that he do ours, and we didn't really know any other producers, so we said okay. And he was a hit producer. You probably remember "Never Can Say Goodbye" by Gloria Gaynor, which was one of the biggest disco hits of all time. I mean, worldwide. And he also produced Donna Summer. And when we were working with him, he had a #1 hit with Disco Star Wars.
Yeah. Huge hit.
Miko. Yeah, it was huge.
It was a huge hit.
It was #1. So he was a very talented engineer, but he was not a real people person. But he was used to working with very slick studio cats and singers that were very, accomplished, like Donna Summer or Gloria Gaynor. He wasn't a bad guy or anything. He just wasn't the right person for us. But fortunately, the engineer, Ed Stasium, who went on to work with many great artists, Ed was really good, and he was like the secret weapon. And sometimes Tony would just leave because Tony was building this big studio called the Power Station. Probably heard of that.
Of course.
And across the street from Studio 54, I think it was. Tony was a bit of a nut. His nephew was John Bon Jovi.
Right. So some of these songs, I guess I was listening a little bit on some songs that didn't make it. There was like, he liked to add horn. Was that his idea to add horns to some of your early songs?
I believe it was David's idea to add horns to like Love Goes to Building on Fire.
Yeah.
David loves the horns. And I like them too. I mean, I like the idea on that song because I thought, it'll make it sound like a Stax record.
Right.
No, it didn't sound like a Stax record. It sounded like Talking Heads with horns.
Were you playing the steel drums and that? Was it the first song on the album?
Love Has Come to Town?
Yeah. Is that
no, I did not play that part. And I'm embarrassed to admit I can't remember who did. It wasn't a member of our band. It was a steel drum player.
I always thought it was weird. Like, here's this punk band or this new, and all of a sudden in comes the steel drums. That kind of set the table for this band is not your ordinary band. This is something.
You can't really categorize them. Yeah, you thought you knew, and then, you were just thrown for a loop. So then you moved on to producers. You moved on to, you eventually connected with Brian Eno.
Yes. We met Brian in London, our first performance in London. He came with John Cale, and we had lunch with him the next day and had a good conversation. And then I think the following day we went over to his apartment and chatted further, and we pretty much all agreed that he would be a good person to produce us because we were fans of his records. We were especially excited by his most recent work with David Bowie and like Heroes and the Low album. He told us he was going to be producing Devo. Oh, that's cool. We like Devo. And we went down to the Bahamas. Chris Blackwell of Island Records had a new studio down there, and he invited us down, gave us a good rate, and everybody was happy to go there. And we recorded our second album there with Brian behind the console.
So this kind of became your second home. And do you feel like the Bahamas is also home for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, one of our son Robin was born there in 1982. One of the things we did was we traded a little piece of real estate, a condominium, I guess you could call it, in exchange for making a record for Chris Blackwell. Instead of the advance in cash, we took some real estate instead. So we still have a little place down there. Love to go there.
We really enjoyed your vivid descriptions of the Bahamas and of living there and of just the sights and the surroundings.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
You name every building, right? So where do you live?
Ours is called Tip Top. That's the name of the building. And the actual apartment is called the Tom Tom Club.
I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
Okay, let's stop right here. Take a break. We're enjoying ourselves with Chris Frantz, author of Remain in Love, and we will be right back.
Today's What Difference Does It Make podcast is brought to you by Audible. Have you tried any Audible audiobooks lately, Dave?
Yeah, I do love the Audible books. It's something I go to all the time. As a matter of fact, I kind of out of ideas. What do you think I would like?
Okay, I have one for you here. I have one. I know you like Rob Sheffield, right?
I do. Love him. What do you got?
How about The Wild Heart of Stevie Nicks?
I know he's a huge Stevie Nicks fan, and I think I would really, really, really enjoy that. That's a good choice. I will go to audibletrial.com/WDDIM podcast and get my free book if I wasn't already an Audible subscriber. But if you're listening, you are not an Audible subscriber,
you go to audibletrial.com/WDDIM podcast and you can download your first free audiobook.
Do it now.
Welcome back to the What Difference Does It Make podcast and part 2 of our interview with Chris Frantz.
Let's talk Tom Tom Club because, all right, so the first thing that surprised me in your book is after Remain in Light, not that David and Jerry got solo deals. I guess that wasn't too surprising. But you mentioned that you had only $2,000 in the bank after one of your biggest albums and you toured and all this. What's going on?
What it was the expanded lineup of the band, having 9 people on stage and a crew of about the same size and airplane tickets for everybody and hotel rooms for everybody. It adds up, Yeah. So at the end of that tour, it was a very successful tour and super exciting. Everywhere we went, it was packed and the accolades were just pouring in, but it didn't make any money. And in fact, we might have even lost a little money.
well, back then, tours were just seen as promotional for the album.
Right.
Yeah. You weren't supposed to make money, I guess. And obviously that was indeed the case.
Yeah. And Remain in Light did not sell a whole lot of copies either. It was not one of our biggest selling albums. Eventually, yes. But when it first came out, people, rock music stations said, "Oh, this sounds too much like black music." And the black music station says, "Oh, this sounds too much like white music." So we were not getting the airplay that we had on Fear of Music. But that's cool. We came back.
So you created something that, again, appealed to both white and black all audiences. Tom Tom Club was quite an accomplishment. Who came up with the idea of did you go to Tina like we got to do something, or was Tina grooving on something and you picked up on it, or how did this all come to fruition?
We knew we had to do something, because who knows how long David and Jerry were going to be busy with their solo projects. So our manager spoke with Chris Blackwell at Island Records, and Chris Blackwell said, "I understand the value of a good rhythm section. Why don't you have Chris and Tina come down to Compass Point and cut a single, make a 45 single. And if I like it, then they can do a whole album." So we said, great, we love that idea. And we went down to Compass Point, and the original producer was supposed to be Lee Perry, Lee Scratch Perry, that produced the Wailers and Police and Thieves for Junior Murvin and lots of great reggae songs. We met with Lee Perry in New York, and he said, "Yeah, man, me can do it." And so we sent all our gear down to the Bahamas. We went down there ourselves, and we booked the studio, and we're waiting, and Lee Perry just didn't show up. And after 2 weeks, our manager finally got him on the phone and said, "Scratch, what's up, man? Chris and Tina have been waiting for 2 weeks." And he said, "Oh, it's about the money." And our manager said, "Oh, well, what do you want?" And Scratch said, "I need $1,000 an hour." And our manager said, well, that sounds kind of expensive. Are you trying to price yourself out of this gig? And Lee Perry said, no, man, no problem. We make the album in 6 hours. So we knew we were sort of barking up the wrong tree there. And Tina said there was a young guy there that we had worked with on Remain in Light. In fact, he had recorded the basic tracks for Once in a Lifetime. Stephen Stanley was his name. He's only like 21, from Jamaica, and an excellent engineer. And she said, well, why don't we just do it with Stevie and see how that goes? And Chris Blackwell said, great idea. And so we went in with Stevie and we cut this song called Wordy Rapping Hood, which went to top 10 in 7 countries in Europe and all over Latin America and the UK. And so Chris Blackwell was very happy. He said, now you can do a whole album. And so the next thing we cut was called Genius of Love, which hit very big in the United States.
Yeah. You're telling me. Yeah. That's great. And as we mentioned, it crossed over to all audiences. You even got to play Soul Train.
Yeah, we played Soul Train. It's so wild. That was like a dream come true for me and Tina, because we used to, when we were young lovers, we used to watch Soul Train on Saturday mornings on TV. So great. And then we got the call, and we were actually in Los Angeles shooting Stop Making Sense.
Right.
So in the morning we did Soul Train, and then evening we did Stop Making Sense at the Pantages. It was a busy day, but a good day.
I just watched Stop Making Sense, and actually, I was listening to the commentary track. That was kind of fun. But what Tina's remark during the Tom Tom Club part is was just how exhausted you looked, because it was Stop Making Sense. Obviously, it wasn't just an hour and a half show. It was a little, you played longer, and then so it's. And you're behind the kit for most of the time, and it's quite an ordeal.
Yes, for the film, it was recorded over four days, right?
I thought it was only 3.
It was 3 days, according to the commentary. Okay. I heard.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've noticed some people say 4, but maybe there was one day that just the camera crew blocked things out or something. Maybe we had to rent the theater for 4 days or something.
Was that a collaborative production, or was that David's conception?
I guess you could say it was primarily David's conception. He had designed this show along with the woman who designed shows for Robert Wilson, or one of the women who does that. And are you familiar with Robert Wilson? Avant-garde theater. And it was a good place to get ideas from. But what was great about that movie, Stop Making Sense, is not just the band. The band was fantastic. I mean, let's face it, amazing. Mm-hmm. But the camera crew, the director of photography, Jonathan Demme himself, everybody we worked with on that. The editor was named Lisa Day, did a fantastic job. And some of the best editors are women. In fact, many of them. So anyway, everybody was like, everybody involved in the production of that just did such a good job. And it all just came together kind of perfect.
One other thing on the commentary track is that the first day in the film, there's not a lot of audience shots. I think on the first day you tried to get audience shots. You put the hot lights on the audience members, and they were getting exhausted, and there wasn't as much. So there wasn't as much energy the first night, and I think you guys panicked a little, or what was? Can you tell us about what was going on?
If you want to get an audience to sit down, put a bright light on them. It just doesn't work. I mean, I always hate it when they you go to shows today and they put a spotlight out into the audience, and I hate that. But what am I going to do?
Talk about collaboration. You seemed you're kind of a theme throughout the book, for me, at least my observation, was that you always seem to be trying to keep the peace. Do you feel like that was your role?
I guess sometimes, not all the time, but maybe sometimes. I know Jerry has told people in interviews and stuff that he was the diplomat of the band, but I mean, maybe he was.
It seemed like you went to great lengths though to keep peace, and Tina also. Just some of my observations.
We loved the band, and we loved what we were doing, and we wanted to keep it together.
Was that Stop Making Sense your last waltz? I mean, I don't think Talking Heads went on tour again after that.
We didn't do any tours after the movie came out, but before the movie actually was released, we did our last tour was a tour of Australia and New Zealand, some big festivals, and they were really great, really fun, but it was kind of sad because we had a feeling it might be the last time because David was making noises about he didn't want to tour anymore, that the movie would tour for us.
So you did get a sense of that. Yeah, you see, you mentioned that how upset, I mean, were you upset, say it's the 35th anniversary of Live Aid, were you upset that Talking Heads were not there?
Well, not so much upset, but just it would have been cool had we been able to do that. You know, that was a big day in the music business, and we were not there.
Yeah. Your book comes out. Is it similar to a record being released?
Yes, it's very similar. It's, you know, in this self-isolating world we're living in, it's kind of weird. You know, everything's different because usually there's a lot of, you know, shaking hands and hugging and even a little kissing, you know, but not this time.
Probably never again, sadly.
Yeah.
I think it'll come back. I
hope so.
And you also hinted Tina might be coming out with a memoir. Is she working on something?
She is in the early days, very early days, but I'm pretty sure she's going to do it. Yeah.
Hopefully she portrays you as lovely as you portrayed her in the book. You really get through the book the feeling that you have for her. And that's a nice long marriage. It's inspiring.
Yes, it is. And what can I say? I'm a very lucky guy.
Yeah.
Health-wise, you good? I heard this one podcast you're doing.
Yeah.
Yes, I had a little hiccup with my heart, but I'm good. I had a checkup yesterday, and my cardiologist said, "You know, Chris, you've made me a very happy man. This is a perfect EKG." So
there you go.
We're good.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you.
And again,
thank you. It was a great pleasure.
Again, remain in love.
Holly and Dave, nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.
Remain in love, and everyone can get it. It's a wonderful read. If you love the Talking Heads, this is going to be it's a real treat. So thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chris. Take care.
You bet.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Chris Frantz, everybody.
That was great. That was super fun.
Yes. Don't forget to follow us. You can go to the WDDIMpodcast.com, sign up for our newsletter, and also social media, right?
Oh, social media. You can find us everywhere these days. On Facebook at What Difference Does It Make? On Instagram at WDDIM Podcast. On Twitter, WDDIM Podcast.
Give us reviews. We love the 5 stars. We love any comments you can give us. So
we love ideas too.
Yes, give us some ideas. Who knows? We might put you on the podcast. Until next time, this is Dave.
This is Holly.
Check you later.
Over and out.